the sophistication to inspire exhilaration, and the technology to customize every ride. Packaged to create a luxury ride like no other. Introducing the most premium personal watercraft on the market. The 2021 FX series from Yamaha.
Morning. I'm in a much better mood today than I was yesterday when it was raining, and we were doing my most favorite thing, camping in the rain. But it was all worthwhile. We've seen off hopefully the bad weather. Now we're going to hit the queue for the launch here. Life jacket, check. One packing system, check. And gloves, check. Check, how's this color coding? How's this? Look at it. Can't even tell the jacket from my fingers. Game plan today? Well, it would have been to be on a kayak, but my cameraman, my editor, my boss, Cameron, camera boss, he said no, I need to be on the boat.
This is my first time fishing in Cape Vidal and I'm very, very excited. I was holding back a bit because I was a bit nervous for the launch, but then I just said to myself, always say yes to new adventures, and gonna go for it. And I'm hoping to catch a good game fish like a kuta or a tuna, or maybe hopefully a prodigal son. So yeah, let's just see what the day holds, and yes to new adventures.
We'll probably play it as we see what's happening out on the water. If there's bait and there's fish around nearby, well then we just fish close, because then you don't need to go far because the fish are here. So yeah, hopefully there's fish right here, and then we can get some good action, get some good footage, and then hopefully I can get on the kayak this afternoon. I'll have to ask Cam's permission though, of course. Okay, thank you. I thought we were gonna go. Well done, BK. Shot, bro. Well done. Shot. Long time. Morning, welcome to Cape Vidal. What a cracker, hairy launch.
Evening, guys. Welcome to another Go Fish weekly wrap. We are live tonight. Sorry, we've been a little bit out of action for a couple of weeks. Things have been busy. Fishing hasn't been busy, but it's great to be back. Kirk's there wearing matching pajamas.
Yeah,
Hello,
how's it,
Kirk.
everyone? Hopefully, get a few guys coming on tonight. Launch a bit late tonight, but yeah, I was came in a bit late there because I had to grab myself a coffee. It's getting a little bit late for me now as we're getting on in age. But yeah, Brendan, this is way too late for you at the moment, dude.
It often happens, eh? Midway through conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
I think this we're just gonna. I mean, this evening's one is we're not gonna. It's not gonna be a long one. I think we chatted about it earlier. It's there's been a bit of action up north, as you'd expect for this time of year. Going over a bit of that, going over sort of the species that you can expect to find as we go into the beginning of November, mid-November, running through pretty much all the way until I'd say maybe January, and then Feb we start seeing a bit of a March we start seeing a bit of a change, but. Yeah, it's exciting time coming up, Brendan. I think as that warmer water starts passing now through, coming down from Mozambique, getting a bit closer to the coastline, especially in areas like we were chatting about earlier, from sort of Pontedora down to Richards Bay. We're going to be seeing that part of the coastline sort of as we've always said, it sort of protrudes a little bit more than our Durban side, so that Mozambique current can come in a little bit closer. And that's where you start to see all those warm water species first coming along our coastline. So your dories and your tuna, and the oaks are getting kuta and salies and all that sort of thing. So that's all starting to happen now.
And I think I was looking at that at the app that shows all the current, and we're looking at it earlier on, sitting there with Yanlo. And the warmer water is obviously still quite far north, but it's a little bit deeper out as well. So even sort of further north, like up in Mozambique, Bazaruta, they're still waiting for some southeasterly winds to push the warmer water closer to shore. So yeah, it's making its way down, and it's you've got that nice big red patch. If you look on the app on that warm water map, it just shows that sort of that red, that orange sort of belt moving down, and that's like the exciting belt. You can almost see the Dorado and the Salies in that patch of orange. So yeah, it's a very exciting time of year. I see we've got a few guys joining us there now. How's it, Rion? How's it, Johan McLaughlin, Bernie, Grant,
and the beach is on, Daddy. Yeah, Chad Ransby's just sent me a picture of what the guys got today in Richards Bay. I see two big marlin. Unfortunately, we can't put it up on the feed at the moment, but two big marlin and some dories that were caught in Richards Bay. So yeah, good signs. I mean, obviously we've got the bullfish should be coming up quite soon in the next couple of weeks in November out of Sodwana. That's obviously always what's that?
The OET, yeah.
Yeah, the OET. So that's going to be that's always a lot of bullfish around. They have it over the specific time of year because the water's nice and warm. So the sorry, I don't know what's popping up here. But so yeah, you get obviously all the bullfish and Dorado and salies and yellowfin tuna and bonnies and all that sort of thing that come down. And Sodwana is just like a cesspool of game fish and whatnot over that time of year. But yeah, I think it's an exciting time. Like we were saying, it's guys are now starting to head north. Sort of leaving Durban waters. It's not quite happening here as yet. In Durban, we're still sort of in that transition period between our winter species and our summer species. I know a couple of guys were saying that off of Durbs and even off of in front of me here, off of Toti, that there's been a couple of very small Dorado, like pan size, shad size. But so not really sort of, I don't think you'd feel too good with yourself if you had to boat that and take it back to the dock. But yeah, it is a good sign. Obviously, dories grow extremely quickly, so those fish aren't going to be that size for long. Give them another month or two, and they'll probably be of a decent size. But it's good to see, because where there are those small dories, that's your kickoff of your game fish season. Like we know, But off Durban side here and Toti and that, and running sort of south down towards the Shoal, north towards probably like Zinkwazi and that sort of thing. Guys are still getting Garrick. We've had a late Garrick season. Guys are still getting Garrick, getting their Cobb. Obviously, your Beck will keep running, but yeah.
In fact, the Garrick is like sort of almost like suddenly made their run. The Garrick has suddenly made their run in the last couple of weeks.
So. You know, I honestly think our sort of season and what we've been catching here hasn't really sort of kicked off or kicked into any gear, to be honest, since the floods that have affected Durban and the most large part of KZN. It's really, I think, thrown a spanner in our season, and the consistency at which we get those normal fish over those times. So hopefully we can get a bit of consistency going forward. It's the first time that I've seen a K right this year since those floods that true to form, November comes, or we're leading up to November, and we start seeing some fish coming off of Vital. I mean, obviously Vital does fish well nearly all year round, but more so obviously as we go October, November. So yeah, I think the guys that are heading up.
You saw what came last week is it was Kuta. It was okay. There was a couple of tuna, but it was mostly Kuta and there was some sailfish as well. But it had been a quiet week. And then some of the kayak guys went up. Roscoe and Gareth Brockett and Paul Nixon went for his final Vital trip for a while. And they landed some really nice Kuta. They were like between 12 and 19 kilos. So not really shoalies. They were proper size fish. Sean Elliott made 3 sailies in a row. So yeah, there was a bit of action.
Yeah, geez, if he nailed 3 sailies in a row, they must have been loose. But I think no jokes. He's a decent fisherman. But the Kuta and that sort of thing over this time of year, you do tend to find 1 or 2 of those bigger fish in amongst the smaller fish. I mean, there's actually not too many like of those 3-4 kilo fish around. You normally see that Feb, March, those sort of fish coming through, and then you'll get your bombers. Now it seems to the last couple of years we've definitely seen more big Kuta over this time of year, like those 15 kilo, 12 kilo, 15 kilo, 18 kilo Kuta. Quite thin, not too well fed, but they are around. But yeah, I mean, November up in Ponto, if Oaks are looking for spots to go, from Ponto Mullingan, even as far as sort of maybe Santa Maria is maybe a little bit far up, but you don't need to go that far up, is what I'm saying. Is Ponto Mullingan and south is a fantastic time to start fishing up those areas and down towards Richards Bay. That whole stretch is just going to start cooking now and we'll see it. Dories, Sailies, obviously your marlin species, yellowfin tuna, and that sort of thing. So, the big thing is because there's quite an array of game fish on over this time of year, and you're not too sure whether you're going to be going into a wahoo or you're going to be going into a yellowfin tuna or a Kuta or anything like that. It's a bit of trial and error, and also obviously finding out what's happening in that area. So, doing your homework sort of the day before you're going to launch and say, right, chaps, maybe go down to if you're there a day early, go down to the weigh station, see what's coming out. And if you see a bit more Kuta than you do yellowfin or dories or something like that, then obviously you need to put at least 1 steel trace in the mix. I'm talking about if you're fishing with a kayak where you're not going to be able to fish more than 1 rod, more than 2 rods, on a sort of bait on bait style. But obviously if you're fishing boat, then you can fish maybe slightly more steel traces than you would your monofilament or fluoro traces. It's important when we're fishing Vital and that sort of thing, Brendan. I mean, even Ponto, especially those clear water places, you don't really want to go. You fishing steel can often be the difference between you getting a bite and not getting a bite. So you obviously always want to try and fish as light as possible. When it comes to leader and wire, because the water is so clear, you are starting to get back into the finesse style fishing. So you're fishing your main lines when you're fishing for dories and tuna and kuta and wahoo, you're not really having anything. Your tuna aren't going to be massive. You're not going to be getting into those 20, 30 kilo models, or you shouldn't be over this time. Going into November at least. You should more sort of be getting those 8 to 15 kilo range fish. So you'll be able to fish lighter lines and still get away with it. 5 to 10, 12 kilo at the max. And then I'd fish that would be the main line. I generally we like to fish that Maxima clean green line or a see-through line. I don't like to sort of go to the yellows and pinks.
Or the Maxima blue. Yeah, the further north you go, you can use the Maxima blue as well.
Yeah, and then sort of just I find like going with some people go with it, some people don't. I know a lot of people that don't fish fluoro. I prefer fishing fluoro because I just I think it's a mental thing for me, but some people don't. Some people just fish normal leader. I used to fish normal leader as a leader line from my main line to my bait, but I've switched over to fluoro because I've seen quite a few of the having fished with oaks like Byron. Obviously, he's a machine game fisherman, and a couple of the guys that he fishes with as well, and all of them fish fluoro. So these oaks have been catching kuta for years, and their fathers years before that, and their fathers year before that. So there's got to be you got to kind of take a tip where it's on offer, and they fishing that 12 to 15 kilo, sometimes as heavy as sort of 18 kilo leader, the fluoro leader, specifically the Siglon. So that would be my kind of
setup. It also depends on how much pressure you put on the fish. So you can if you can get away with the lighter line if you just play the fish. Obviously, if there's Johnnies and that around, you want to put a lot of pressure on and get it to the boat. But you can land. A lot of guys look at a line class and they'll say, right, okay, 15 kg line class. Any fish above 15 kg is going to break me off. That's not actually the case.
So look, not all of us can afford to go with 3 or 4 different rods depending on or lines or whatever, and obviously when you're fishing a multiplier reel, you don't have that luxury. Whereas with a grinder, you can get 2 spools and fish 2 different size lines. I'd suggest if you want to kind of get a nice all-round mixes, which is what I've got on my rods, is like a 12.5 kilo main line, which is 25 pounds, and then you'll go 12 kilo main line, and then you'll go with a 35 to 38 pound Siglon leader on there. So I found that works really well, and it's a nice all-round line to use for this time of year, and pretty much all times of year. You can put quite a bit of pressure on 12.5 kilo. But yeah, so I think the way I'd fish this time of year is if I was going with a kayak, for instance, I'd fish 1 steel trace and I'd fish one monofilament line. I'd probably fish the steel trace. I'd have them one on the surface and one a little bit deeper, maybe on depending on how deep I'm fishing and what the current's doing. But you probably want that other mid trace. If it's early in the morning, you kind of want it maybe closer to the surface because that's where all those fish are going to be feeding. But I'd probably put it maybe on a 3 ounce or 4 ounce sinker early in the morning. And then I'd fish a surface bait on a fluoro leader, and that would be, just specifically because your dories and your tuna predominantly are more inclined. I mean, not really more inclined, but in my mind, I'm just sort of thinking, well, those fish are normally sort of around the surface, and that wahoo as well. Unfortunately, you might encounter 1 or 2 wahoo on the surface as well, and kuta. But I've just always put I've dropped my steel trace and I've got 2 baits.
But you're right. If you're gonna be putting steel on one and fluoro on the other, it's better to have the fluoro on the surface because you're more likely to have the dories and tuna higher up than the kuta deep down. Obviously, it's not always just that side. But that's just the start with. But then as things go, you might find the kuta are loose everywhere, and you're getting charred off on the top and getting on the bottom. Then you put steel, like I said, put steel on both. So
yeah, so the most important thing
it's
there
about
is not
figuring out the
necessarily.
water as well.
Yeah, it's the most important thing there, to take out of it is obviously you trying to figure out what the fish is feeding on. So, are you getting more fish on the monofilament and getting no bites on the trace? Well, then you need to swap over to a monofilament trace if you're getting tuna and dories and that sort of thing, because then possibly there's not too many kuta around. If you get bitten off, then obviously you reverse that. But if so on a trace wire, if you find that you're getting sort of a very sharp bite, like a little zzz, like that, then you generally need to, it often means like that kuta or that toothy critters, he can see that trace. So he's coming up and he's eating the tail. So in that case, if you get like a little zzz and that's it, free spool that. So drop it, because the natural movement of that bait, more often than not, he's charred the tail and there's still a bit of that bait left on the trace. So just for safety's sake, free spool that, because when a game fish comes and hits a bait and it chars the tail off, that bait just starts sinking like that. So that's what the natural movement that you want to create. Okay, so you want to create that that natural movement, so you free spool your bait. But if you find that you're getting charred like that, like a zzz, or maybe you're getting you're not getting a sort of a solid bite, you have to, but there's a lot of toothy critters around and the water's clean, you have to pack scaled down traces. So your trace that I would start off with would be number 4 wire in the lead wire, down to from your swivel down to your lead hook, and then in between the bar trace like a number 5 or a number 6. Scaling down, you can scale down to as much as sort of a 3 and a 4 in that regard. Even I know guys that have even scaled down even more in really, really clean places. So it's all about, you got a lot of clean water around. It's about finesse fishing now and getting that bite. Rather get the bite and possibly lose 1 or 2 fish and know that you're doing the right thing, then sit and hold pole and watch everyone else, go on and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's for the tuna and kuta and dories and that sort of thing. I know
when it comes to steel traces, I find it works quite well at this time of year. Well, when time really is, if you want to scale them down, I just do I'm telling you, just a single treble on like a number 4 or number 3. So you've just got less. There's just less hooks exposed. You're just minimizing everything as much as possible.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you might miss a bit of a bite if it chars off. Sort of, if you don't have 2 sets of trebles and whatever. But if you've got it in a small mozzie or something in its back, and the fish takes a big bite, he's gonna get hooked. Sorry, I don't know where the camera is. He's gonna get hooked solidly anyway. So it's just a simple single treble on like a number 4 or number 3. Also, I mean a single treble, like 1 treble.
Yeah. And you'd attach that to like a number 6 or number 5 power swivel. You're fishing very small. You're fishing small swivels, smaller hook.
This is
this time of year, you're not getting
number 6 power swivel.
Yeah. So this time of year up north, you're not getting big baits. You're getting those small mozzies and cigar scads and that sort of thing. You're not really getting mackerel because of the warm water and that. But so on what we were talking about earlier with regards to getting the bite and then you're getting that zzz, and then it's gone. So fishing like that it's a great way. It's a great way of fishing. So you can also fish. I like to fish. Byron taught me a trick with fishing with that Gamakatsu Taiman, the 4.0, and I can't believe the hookup ratio on that hook. It's unbelievable. But you also just sort of get it behind the fleshy part of the neck, so just behind the skull of the fish. So what that entices the fish to do is it entices it to swim down, and on something like a ski boat, so even a kayak, but preferably probably a ski boat or a jet ski, is you fish that rod really far back. So you put them upright. So what happens is now what you're creating is you're creating a line that's coming from a very high rod. So if you've got a T-top, you put that rod up in the T-top on quite a slack drag, and that rod's now nice and high. So the line is, you're trying to get that line to go kind of not touch the water. You want that line to almost go directly to your swivel. And then what that creates is that bait fish is now on the surface of the water. Every now and then he might come up, creates a bit of a splash, and then go back down. And that's what you want, because you want that disturbance on the water. And what often happens is, because the hook's in that's just behind that sort of head there, obviously you've got more bait exposed, but less hooks on the bait to be able to hook up. To be able to hook up. So what you need to do is you need to box a bit more cleverly with regards to that bait. So what's going to happen more often than not is that fish is going to come up. You're going to get more bites because there's less hooks on the bait. The bait is swimming more freely in that. So what's going to happen though is your hookup ratio is going to increase. And I promise you that fishing that bait probably about 50, 60 meters behind the boat, in that way.
I normally put it about 300 meters.
No. Look, you can. I mean, if you're tuna that are chowing really shyly, you can fish it up to 80 meters behind the boat. But it fishes exceptionally well. But the biggest thing is when you get a hit on that bait, and a lot of the times you'll get that zip, you have to free spool that bait immediately, because that's what we were talking about earlier. That's that natural movement of the bait. He'll come up, he'll chow it. He's probably not going to hit that hook because the hook's only in the back of the head. He's probably going to hit that bait midway or at the tail, because that's how they maim the bait, obviously, in the water. And that bait needs to then immediately sink. So don't wind the bait up, because that's not the natural movement of a bait once it gets chowed, once the tail gets chowed, right? You've just got to free spool that thing and let him go and let him drop. And more often than not, I promise you, it's such a wild experience that as soon as you free spool that, it'll slowly free spool, and then all of a sudden you'll just feel the line going just peeling out of your reel, and you slowly just crank over, and you'll be on. So it's an awesome way of fishing. It's a flippin' really, really successful way of fishing, and a really good way of fishing, and it produces the goods. So that's a great little tip, whether you're fishing a treble or that sort of single Kamagatsu taiman behind the head. But yeah, and also fishing it on wire. So if you're fishing for kuta and you predominantly find there's a lot of kuta in the area, you can fish it monofilament. So we fish it often monofilament if we know that there's more tuna and dories in the area. But then also if there's a lot of kuta and wahoo in the area, we always put one bait out like that, always. So you'll put your steel traces and that sort of thing. If you're specifically fishing for kuta, put your steel traces out and whatnot. If you're on a boat, you've obviously got the luxury of putting 4 or 5 baits out, 6 baits. Put 1 or 2 dead baits, put 1 or 2 live baits, different baits, change it up a bit to find out what the fish are chowing on. And then you've got to put that Hong Kong rig right out the back, nice and far, with a little larvae on the surface, and it works like a charm, man.
And yeah, at the moment, as we now going into right into the season, it's you can be a little bit more sort of species specific, I guess, as things start heating up there, because obviously at this time of year it is very sort of Dorado thick, I guess, and tuna thick. So you can do exactly what you're saying, is have go very light on one, and then have a steel on the deep. And the thing is, I think also a lot of guys also not just if the fishing's scarce, but up at Vardal, when the dories are on and the tuna are on, then they've just got fluoro out the whole time, and they're just chasing dories and tuna, and there's still kuta around. There's still kuta around there, and so it's definitely worthwhile putting some bait deeper with a steel trace on, because we often forget that there's going to be kuta around up at Vardal at that time of year, and they are there, and good sized ones as well.
I think also, something that the guys must look out for. Obviously, this time of year, we're still getting a lot of rain, and that those November rains and that, and we know that the seasons have shifted a bit. So we kind of probably going to get those rains going going into December, Jan. But we're starting to see some rain already. Those evening rains that are coming down might push like the likes of a St. Lucia River out a bit, and one or two other rivers along the coast between here and Richards Bay and south. But what happens is, obviously, because you get such like differences in wind on one specific day, you could wake up and the northeast could be pumping in the morning, and you've got brown water in front of you, and then you've got a massive west that comes through and cleans up and pushes that color line. I can remember one afternoon fishing Vidal where we had exactly that. We had rain for 2 days. It was cuck weather, and then there was just this southwest that pumped for probably a day, and it pushed all this chocolate water. It was all in the bay. It was brown, and that current just got pushed in, and it pushed all that brown water. It was just banked up on backline, and what happens obviously there, that those bait fish are all sitting in that kind of brown water on that edge, and those dories just come up. It was like purple against brown, and they were going ballistic, where you can actually see the dories swimming under your fishing ski and going mad under the boat. And it was incredible. So I mean, just paying attention to those sort of changes, in weather, in wind, paying attention to the color of the water. All those things can switch on that fishing, any time of year, but specifically this time of year, quick. The most important thing I think about areas like that is your current. Vidal and Ponto and those north reaching areas, and anywhere, but more specifically over this time of year, if you've got that streaming north-south current, those fish are on. Generally, like, I mean, I think you speak to anyone and they'd put their proverbial on the block and say, if there's a north-south current and it's pushing, they'll be going up to Vidal and fishing, because generally those fish are on. If there's a very slack current or there's no current, it's going to be a lot harder to sort of get into those into those game fish and that. But yeah,
if you're kayak fishing and you find yourself round the point and not able to paddle back because the current's so strong, well, the good thing is that there's going to be fish around, even though you're not able to paddle back to shore.
Yeah,
but
also
like, a place like Vidal, in a lot of places, and we say this often, is that when you get water, having to fish for the bait, your first bait, get that bait in the water next to your boat or next to the ski. You obviously don't have to have that far out, so it's going to tangle over the lines of everyone who's around there. But if you've got a bait in the water on your line, will often be game fish in there feeding on that bait as well. Could get you your first rev of the morning while you're catching your bait.
Yeah, 100%. And also when it comes to dead baiting, if you're battling for bait and that, when it comes to dead baiting, when you've got that cleaner water, you want to kind of stick to your sort of pearls and your pearl live glow or your pinks. Maybe you can switch it up with the green here or there, but your duster in front of your dead bait, you want to kind of stick to kind of those more, not natural colors, but more go-to colors. You can go for a darker color or like a blue or something like that. If the water dirties up after a northeast, maybe go to a blue, or if you're fishing maybe a bit of a later time of day, it might be worthwhile switching up to a blue duster. So also trying to fish weightless as much as possible. We've done a couple of videos on that bait of Byron's, where he, that airplane bait where he cuts up all of Mary's ice cream tubs and puts and makes those bait wings, and it works exceptionally well when you're trying to fish a bait weightless. So obviously it works on the when you don't have a bait. Yeah, exactly. It creates a bit more of a natural look to the bait, but you've got to go at a bit of a slower speed, which is fine, and more of a sort of drift. Once you start kind of going a bit faster, then you need to start putting bait swimmers on. So any of the guys that are kind of just getting into it, you'll go to like Kings or Basil Manning or whatever, or you go into Kings and you get these bait swimming traces with bait swimmers on them already. You've got to try and get into a habit of making your own traces as well as weighting your own traces, because it's exceptionally important. That weight can be the difference between you sitting there and not getting any bites, and the oak next to you weighting his baits properly, which creates the right action on the bait, getting the bites, and you sort of watching TV. All those little nuances are going to help you in getting into the fish. So try and start weightless. If your bait is spinning, do that sort of wing trick with that is on the Facebook page. And if you guys want to see it, they're the wings there. Brendan's got some. Do that little wing trick with a bit of flash wrap on it, and then you go to like a ½ ounce bait swimmer, and then you go to a 3/4 ounce if it's still spinning, and then go to a 1 ounce. So yeah, it also obviously depends on the size of the bait, but generally this time of year you're not really fishing bonnies and that, unless you're kind of going for your big bullfish. Oaks, up in Vidal, you're fishing smaller baits. You're fishing red eyes. Red eyes are great baits for there this time of year. You're fishing, you're fishing sard, fishing maybe 1 or 2 mackerel as well to throw some in the mix. So yeah,
take dead bait up to Vidal. A lot of guys go up to Vidal, going, I'll grab there's plenty of live bait. I'll grab live bait when I'm there. And there are days when there's no live bait, so you need that dead bait when you have to.
Hey, more often than not, Brendan, especially over this time of year, because there's so many people on the water, when you go up to, and you see it in Ponta as well, you'll see it on any good fishing spot. If you're not the first oak out there, almost in the dark, you've got a very, very small chance of getting bait. And Vidal especially, there's such a small area where you can actually get bait. We've worked out it's pretty much the size of like a mini. If even that big, where the bait is consistently kind of over that spot. And if you're sort of third or fourth in the line there, if you've got like 2 or 3 ski boats in that area, that bait's going to scatter pretty quickly. So you really need to try and be the first.
And if there's game fish around, the game fish will be trying it as well.
Yeah, 100%. So a good thing to try is if you battling for bait there, go, work that 18-meter line. I found sort of between 14 and 18 meters pretty much all through the day. If you've got your finder on and you're watching that finder, always watch that finder. I found a lot of baits south of Vidal down towards those washaways and the lighthouse and that sort of thing. You find that bait in that sort of 14 to 18 meters. So it's often a good idea just to watch your find all the time, because you often find bait on those in those areas there. But John, well, that answers your question. You've got to be on the water early if you want the bait, and it's and it can be very, very, very scarce. So very scarce. I think one of the guys was asking a question about plastics.
Yeah. There's some spammers on here, I think.
Yeah.
Your mate.
Yeah, I think plastics. So if you're finding baits and baits and live baits and dead baits. So if you get on the water, generally when you're going to pull out plastics is if you're trying to find the fish, one. Secondly, this time of year, if you're going to a place like Vidal, you're going to try and get live bait first up. Don't waste too much time in getting live bait. If you're struggling for live bait, you're looking for live bait maybe half an hour at the max. And if you're not getting any, then you need to push off and start fishing your dead baits and whatnot, or maybe start pulling plastics, because that time of day is such a critical time of day, that first sort of light at Vidal. So there you're either going to then move off and shift off and start pulling plastics, or you're going to pull baits down. If you've got a north-south current, you're obviously going to drift down the coast. So what we'll generally do is we'll drift down the coast with baits, and then we'll pull plastics back up. Now, predominantly, my 2 favorite lures, Hulko 160DD and the Williams Speed Pro 160DD. 160D. The reason being is you can pull both pretty much at the same speed, and you're covering 2 parts of the water column, because obviously your Williamson is a deep diver, so that's a 6-meter diver, I think it is, if not a little bit more. I think it's 6 to 8 meter, and he covers more sort of your mid-water column, and then obviously your 2 meter diver covers that sort of top water area, and there you're able to pull those baits at really, really good speeds and really high speeds as well. I'd stick color-wise, if we're looking at, let's say, 3 to 4 colors, R15. So that's your chrome pink and the Hulko 160 DD that you can pull any time of the day. That's that purple and silver lure.
Not really
probably
pink.
got them,
Is
there
that
you
color
go.
there?
They're like, if there's one lure that you need in your box, that's it. It's phenomenal.
That's not the 160, but that's the color.
Yeah. But that's So you're looking at the Laser Pro 160 DD, and then you go, and then in the Hulkos, I'd probably go with you get your Tiger. So it's an orange Tiger. It's orange striped. That's a really nice lure to fish sort of later on in the day. The pink Tiger is also a good lure, and then
Tiger's a good one.
Yeah, and then obviously you can't go wrong. You can't go anywhere without your red head. So that's the four lures. That's the color.
Your
color. So yeah, and then you might just want to change the hooks out on those. I mean, they are pretty strong hooks, but I prefer to change the hooks out on them and just go for 1x heavier. Just remember that when you're changing hooks out on lures, it's very important to go with the size hook that's recommended on the packet, because when you start going with bigger or heavier hooks, it affects the swimming action of that lure, and that's something that you obviously don't want. And you don't fish steel. Don't fish steel in front of those lures. The Williamson baits.
Never fish steel with plastics, really.
No. Yeah. Unless you're getting bitten off.
It's like 10% of the time.
Yeah. If there's a lot of kuta around or a lot of wahoo around and that sort of thing, they're obviously going to be fighting over that bait. And what you'll find is you'll get chowed off. Even if I get chowed off once, I'll put another Hulko down without wire. If I get chowed off again, then I'll put like maybe number 10, 10, 15 centimeters of number 4 wire in front of the lure, just so that it doesn't affect the swimming action too much.
But the thing is also, I think with a lure is that a fish will often come in. You're generally pulling it quite fast, so you're going to either pull it sort of past him, and he's going to come up and have a look, or he's going to be coming from behind, and he's often going to come in and grab it from here, and it's quite a big mouthful to take that whole lure and bite off the leader as well. So it's often that he'll come in and snatch it like that, or come in from behind like that. It's not very often when he comes in from the front and grabs it.
First,
if it does, well, that's just hard luck.
Yeah. Just instinctively, they go to, like we were saying earlier, they go to maim the fish, so they go for the middle or the tail first, maim it, and then come and chow the rest.
He's hooked. So.
Yeah. So like with that, with any place really, if you've got the current going north to south, and I'm pulling plastics, I'll try and sort of zigzag in amongst that current, just to sort of create a bit of a different, to position the bait a bit differently to others. So basically, if it's a north-south current, your fish are going to be up facing north, your bait fish in that, facing north, trying to stay in the current and stay over the area that they're on, generally. And that's kind of, what gets everything going. When there's a quick current coming up, when there's no current, your fish are generally near the bottom, not really doing too much. When there's a current, now your fish come up off the ground, your bait fish in that, and they've got to kind of swim a lot harder to stay over the area that they want to stay. And that's where the game fish come in and get excited. So what I try to do is I try and zigzag in amongst that current to try and entice a bite and just present a bait that's looking a little bit different to whatever else is around there. What was the other thing that I was wanting to say now, man? Sherbet. Anyway, yeah, that obviously also pulling those little Dorado catches with a little, or a sailfish enticer with a little a strip bait in there as well, works exceptionally well when you're wanting to cover water. When you're doing that drift over those marks and over your marks and over your reefs and that sort of thing, it's always good to pull a lure back to your spot so that you've always got a bait in the water and you're always working that water. And those little strip baits work exceptionally well.
These little these colors work quite well up at Vidal in particular. So I'm using the camera. The little pink pink skirts, like these Yamashitas here. For some reason,
spend the bucks.
That's a smaller one there, and then
folks,
there's the bigger one. They work really
biggest
well
thing
up in
there,
Basel.
Brendan, is the biggest thing there with those things is spend the money. You know, like you're going to go on it, you're paying 5K or whatever it is. I don't know how much, I'm not 100% sure. You know, however long you're going up to Vital for, spend the money and get the right stuff. Yamashita, time and time again, has proved itself as without a doubt the best skirt that you can put in front of a Dorado bait or a tuna bait. Spend the money and a tuna bait, whatever.
I think it's just that the weight and the shape and the actual color. It's just
everything.
That particular one just proves to be perfect.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that's, you spend the money and you know, you're spending $5,000 or $6,000 on a trip, an extra flipping $60 on bloody you know, as opposed to 30 Rand on 5 squids is not going to break the bank, you know.
And
yeah,
you can also put those on a live bait as well. If you're struggling on your larvae, you can put one of those Yamashita skirts on the larvae. You don't want to obviously suffocate your larvae, so you can trim it a little bit, but it does add a little bit of color and a bit of flair. So it can often bring
all you can do there is, you know, always carry a couple of spare elastics. So you just tie an elastic a little bit further up the lead hook, or your lead hook from your lead hook. So from your swivel to your lead hook, you tie a piece of elastic maybe 4 or 5 centimeters up that trace wire or up that line, so that your Yamashita stops short of the lead hook by like 10 centimeters, and then it's not going to affect your bait's breathing at all. But John's asking about a daisy chain. John, 100%. You know, if you ask a lot of the good fishermen in that, you know, one of the things that if they were going anywhere, you'd probably find in their top 3, if they could take 3 artificial things with them to catch fish to be able to survive, a daisy chain would be definitely in that top 3. So 100%.
I think daisy chains enough, to be honest.
No, I don't. No, 100%.
For all fish, even snook. Often guys catching when they're fishing for snook with daisy chains. Daisy chains are definitely a winner.
Yeah.
Just I think Quincy was just asking about. Sorry, I sort of just asking. I don't know if he was asking to see that. So I missed it there. See that the trace again. It's a single. Sorry, the camera. I was getting the camera on. It's a single. It's one treble on a probably about a 30 centimeter number 3 wire, number 4 wire. You could even go down to number 2 wire, and then a number 6 power swivel. So it's minimizing everything, just as sort of light as possible.
And you're fishing that on a slightly slacker drag, but so that and also obviously your hooks. Generally, you're looking at a number 2 or number 4 size treble when you're fishing up there, depending on the size bait. So if you're going with like a bigger bait, you'd go with a little bit of a bigger hook, and if you're going with a smaller bait, you go with a smaller hook. But you're generally try and only fish one hook. Like even on dead baits, fish one hook from one treble. I'm saying put it 3/4 of the way down. More often than not, you're not going to be missing. Very seldom you're going to be missing bites in that fish. You know, also having two trebles on a dead bait as well. On a live bait, always fish one hook. Sometimes even on your bigger bonnies, you can fish one hook. But on stuff like mackerel and mass bunker, cigar scads, if you can keep a red eye alive, you know, fish one treble hook as your bite trace. So you'll fish your from your power swivel. You're fishing like a number 5 power swivel or number 6 power swivel, a piece of wire to your lead hook. So that piece of wire to your lead hook should be about 1.5 times the size of your bait. And the reason being is if you sort of fishing, you can picture. So let's say that's my distance. That's as big as I can go with the screen that I've got. But let's say that's your sort of distance there between your power swivel and your lead hook. what you want, if you can take my finger here on the really edge of the screen here, let's say the edge of the screen, let's say your bait is bigger than that space. What's going to happen is, if when the bait gets chased by the game fish, your bait's going to turn around, come around and run in front of your leader, and you've got a chance of getting bitten off. It happens a hell of a lot with bonito, and that's why fishing a long leader with bonito is so important. So with your live baits, you always want to go sort of 1.5 times, 2 times longer than your bait itself, from that cast swivel to the lead hook. And then with a dead bait, you can shorten it up, because obviously you're not going to have it's dead, so it's not going to be sort of trying to run away from the game fish. Gerard, the Dorado catcher, I think Williamson make it. It's a smaller. No, that's
a Dorado catcher. These
that's
these called Dorado catchers at one stage. These feathers, I think, from Gladiator, but
I think those are tuna catchers. Those are tuna feather.
Yeah, tuna catcher. Okay. So.
Yeah, the Dorado catchers are. I don't know if you know what those sort of. If you ever saw the pulsator jub. If you go online, even if you go online and you research Dorado catcher, it's like a small Kona. The head's very, very small, probably about a little bit sort of thicker, maybe about the same diameter as my finger, so probably about I don't know, 2 centimeters or a centimeter to 2 centimeters in width. And it's a small bait. You're probably looking at about 15 centimeters. And they work exceptionally well. So great colors to go for there. You get a fruit salad color, which is like yellow, blue, and pink. I think it is, but you'll know what it looks like from what I'm saying here online when you go and check it out. Then you'll go for like a pink's always good. The purples work well, blues work well. So yeah, that's also a great bait to put in. Yeah.
Isn't it? It's similar in a way to the Squid Nation. Hello, am I on?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I'm on the camera.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry, Ben. I'm not too sure where you are there.
No. Cam controls that.
But yeah. So I think, like, so that Dorado catcher works really well for, similar to that. It's a similar size to that, maybe a little bit, pretty much the same size. Those Squid Nations also work really well. So that's a great bait for, like, you can use that off your kayak, jet ski, and ski boat. And then obviously with your motorized crafts, you can go slightly bigger if you want. You can go to like a sailfish catcher, which is a slightly longer bait. But remember, you're trying to imitate the baits that are in the area. So, you don't want to go with, you're not going to pull marlin conas in 15 meters of water off the backline at Vinyl. You're going to catch, you're in the bush. That sort of thing you're going to be pulling on deep Oscar where the bonnies are around and whatnot. So you've got to sort of scale your baits and presentations according to the bait that's in the area and where you're fishing. Look, I don't know if the guys have got any more questions, but we're just going to cover one or two things from the likes of Suzuki and Lawrence. I don't know if you've also got one or two things there, Brennan, but so this week, if you guys are in the Cape Town area, there is the Cape Town Boat Show that's happening. Suzuki is going to be down there as well. So that's the 28th to the 30th of October. That's pretty exciting. Nice to see that the boat show is still going on in Cape Town. I know obviously Joburg and Durban have sort of subsided a bit, but it's nice to see that the Cape's still got a boat show down there. So catch Suzuki SA down there this weekend. And then you've got
Yamaha as well.
Yeah, and obviously the guys from Yamaha are going to be there. Possibly the guys, I don't know if Lawrence has got to stand there. But yeah, all your sort of main fishing oaks are going to be down there. So it's going to be good to see. Then from Lawrence, they've got something that they don't really is maybe some of you guys obviously only know Lawrence for their fish finders, but Lawrence obviously do a hell of a lot of other products. They've got a wide array of fishing products that they can offer you, from their dolphin spray, which is phenomenal for your electronics, and it should be a must-have for all of you guys that are fishing with electronics to be able to protect your electronics after use. But they've also got ocean LED, which are LED lights that shine into off of the hulls of your boats. And I don't know if you can put them on your jet skis and that, you never know. But basically, they've proven to actually improve, your catching of bait and attracting fish. So yeah, it's always a good idea to have a look at Lawrence's website. You never know what they're bringing through. Ocean LED's just been in the country with a couple of new products, so maybe give them a look. It's really interesting, something to put on your boats. A lot of guys are putting them on their boats, not just for the fish attracting style of things. It also looks good, but also from a safety aspect. So if you're fishing at night, having those lights on the water also gives a bit more of a presents more of a safety aspect to other crafts and possibly aircrafts in case you get into a bit of trouble.
Just on that dolphin spray corrosion block, so this one's a little bit long in the tooth, but it still works. This stuff is phenomenal. It's always good to obviously use it when you come off the water. You should always your electronics in the sort of in the little plug holes and that. Just spray some of this in, and it will keep those from corroding. And it actually can, even when there's a bit of corrosion starting to kick in, it can get rid of the corrosion that has just started. So you definitely need some of this stuff in your
phenomenal product. John, you're more than welcome to pop me a message on our Facebook Messenger. I think I've probably got 1 or 2 bait spots at Vital. I don't mind sharing them with you, but so yeah, just pop us a message there on our Facebook Messenger on Go Fish, and I'll share a 1 or 2 GPS marks there from Vital.
Without a GPS mark though, if you just a good spot to look for is after you've launched
all the boats,
go
all the other boats.
north, left. You'll keep an eye on the boats, but if you're one of the first on the water and there's a signboard on that other access point onto the beach, and in front of that signboard in about sort of 13 to 18 meters of water, that's often where the bait sits there. So you can use that as a bit of a marker to fish.
Yeah, Brendan's right. Obviously, depending on tides. Obviously, if you've got a bit of a lower tide, then obviously it's going to be a bit shallow. But yeah, anywhere from 12 to 15 meters of water, 100%. That's where that bait marker is pretty much off that sign. It's a very, very small area. It's tiny. It is almost. We almost thought it was the size of an engine block. It's so small. So yeah.
But look for bait on the surface. Look for bait on the surface. No. When you're often at Vital, you'll often see the pockets sort of popping up on the surface, and then that's when you need to chase them down, and you need to chase them down because you're not going to find them often.
And sadly, also sometimes that's the difference between you getting fish and not. So, like especially in a place like Vital, if you get 4 baits, a lot of the times it's 4 fish, and you won't get as much action on your dead baits, but especially when that water's clean, those fish sharpen up really, really quick, and you need to sort of fish really nice and finesse on live baits is the ideal option. But yeah, guys, I think Brendan, if you guys got any more questions, please fire them through. We can tend to them over the messenger. We've got obviously our tours side starting now. The season's actually now for Go Fish Tours. We're running tours from Latham to Latham Island, from Zanzibar, from Tanzania, so from Dar es Salaam, on a 54-foot liverboard cat, fishing for GTs and doggies, wahoo, tuna. The guys are getting some insane catches there at the moment. That'll run all the way until mid-December. And then we've got we're starting a couple new tours next year, going to fish places like Safala Banks off of Bara, also off the same yacht as well, the 54-foot option. There you'll fly into Vilankulos and make your way down to Safala Banks, trawling all the way down and then fishing that area off of Bara. And then obviously, we've got Bazaruto to Purman, Vilankulos to Purman to Bazaruto, which is another option. And then obviously we've got our Primeres option as well. We've also got Seychelles as well as Fiji.
Tion out of Bara.
Yeah, there's some good top water action. There's a lot of sort of your lighter jigging stuff. The fishing there, I mean, from Tion's side of things, we've got obviously. Yeah, sorry, Brendan, I misheard you there.
It's a bit of a different way of fishing than yeah.
Yeah, so Tion's got an awesome operation there where you can take sort of a smaller group of guys as opposed to getting a big group of guys for the yacht. He can take smaller groups of guys on his boat and take the guys out there. He's been fishing there since he was knee high to a grasshopper, and he knows the area well. He's been putting some really good fish across the deck, really good game fish. So some exciting stuff, prospects for next year. Guys, and we're going to be plotting and planning a couple of exciting things for 2023.
And trips, local trips as well, like our Vital one, which unfortunately it's probably looking like it's going to be postponed because there's a bit of a clash of dates from our side that we've just realized, but we'll put that out in the next couple of days. But that's not the end of it. There's there's a lot of that sort of stuff in the pipeline. Just to answer Henk's question there, Henk,
a great
what color Sabiki Vital? For some reason, I quite prefer the red. At least start off with the red, but then, like anywhere, you need to work it out. So sometimes you'll be fishing red and it's not working, and then go for the Lumo green. So I normally prefer to start off with the red there. I don't know about you, Kirk. I know a lot of guys use the red.
100%.
For some reason, it seems to work.
Yeah, any place. Even if I'm fishing locally off of here, I'll go with maybe 3 or 4 different options of sabikis. Well, when I say sabikis, obviously sabikis is a brand. We call those bait daisy chains. We all call them sabikis, but I'll go. I'll take sort of. There's some that come out with more of like a sort of paper behind the hook.
Yeah.
That often works well for the mackerel. But generally, 100% exactly what you're saying. Take the green and the red up, and that works exceptionally well.
Okay,
right,
I think
guys,
we've actually gone on a long time, so
yeah. If there's any questions from your guys' side, please fire them through, chaps. We'll push on to ask them as quickly as we can. But shot for tuning in, Brendan. I don't think there's anything else from our side or your side there.
Yeah. I'm sure we could continue this conversation long into the night, but maybe we'll carry it on another night. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Cam, our man behind the cameraman. I know you've had a long day. Man behind the camera. I know you've had a long day. Thanks very much, Woody. Appreciate you. But
show us your face. There
he is. Shot, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate the support, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks.